Rapid reaction after Kentucky just got dog walked down in Tuscaloosa to Alabama, 78-52. It was so ugly. I can't even believe we have to sit here and talk about it. It was the third lowest scoring effort of the Calipari era at Kentucky. They needed two late three-pointers to break 50. It's the worst loss in the program's history against Alabama. It is now 0-3 on the road, where Kentucky has led by a total of 23 seconds in 120 minutes in road atmospheres this season. I could go on and on and on about the ugly numbers, but I'm here with Zach Gagan and Jack Pilgrim to rapid react to the game. Zach is at the game, probably wanting to get the hell out of there as quickly as he can. Let's just jump right in. I'll start with you. Tell us about the atmosphere. We all have the same complaints, so we know what we're going to get to there. But at least walk us through what it was like being in Tuscaloosa. Maybe even in the beginning when Kentucky had some fighting off that 9-point deficit and showing a little bit in the beginning.
The atmosphere was great, honestly. I think it was a true sellout. They had, it was a white towel night, whatever that means. So they had towels everywhere. Like I said, atmosphere was crazy. It was definitely probably about 95% full. I've never been to this stadium before. It's kind of weird how it's laid out. It's a lot smaller than Rep 2, but the way the crowd worked was, the crowd was really into it. It was easy for people on the center court to get the crowd even more hyped up. So just every following basket just made him loud to a point where Cal couldn't even get his message across to his players. He was screaming and yelling, and they just couldn't hear him because it was so loud in here. So the atmosphere itself was great. It made for a fun game to watch from an Alabama perspective, but obviously from a Kentucky's perspective, it was not very great. Even in those little mini spurts where they had their runs with Collins in, where they had it 20-19 or whatever it was, it still didn't even feel like Kentucky was playing that well, just because Oscar was on the bench, the best player was on the bench, and Kaysen had 2 fouls as well. So just from the jump, it was all Alabama, and the tides never turned, if you will.
Jack, you did not make the trip. You were wise, enjoying that new home of yours, but you did not enjoy this game. I know you were as frustrated as anyone. You were hopeful of them this morning when you're on the KSR pregame show. Did you pick Kentucky to win?
Unfortunately, yes, I did.
Oh, my goodness. So, yes, you are extra disappointed in the performance. Where does the blame start with you?
I hate to do this because he's the National Player of the Year. He's Kentucky's savior in pretty much every facet of the game. But this was the worst we've seen Oscar Tshiebwe play during his time in a Kentucky uniform. He was unplayable on both ends of the floor, got absolutely cooked in the pick and roll. Alabama went right at him from the opening possession and basically said, all right, well, he clearly is not going to stop that. And they went after him time and time and time again. Ended up having to come off the floor. Cal pulled him for Damian Collins, then Ugo, and then even there at the very end, we got to see Lance Ware. Didn't even know he was available because everybody has been talking about his hurt shoulder. Since when is he available? I didn't know. He enters the game at the very end. But yeah, Oscar just was not good enough in any facet of the game. 1 for 7, 4 points, 6 rebounds, which is terrible against a team that gives up a lot of rebounds, and 4 turnovers. Just lost with the ball in his hands. But really, his biggest downfall was on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, that's the worst we've seen of Oscar ever. At halftime, for all you plus-minus followers, he was a minus 13 in 10 minutes. Which, I mean, you got to go out of your way to be a minus 13 in 10 minutes playing for Kentucky. And then a minus 25 for the game. You mentioned his 6 rebounds. It's the first time ever Oscar has been out-rebounded someone. Brandon Miller got him today with 7 rebounds. First time in Oscar's career. They started off defending Miller pretty well, Zach. Toppin was on him, kind of shutting him down, but then Toppin was 0 for going the other way. He, Oscar, and Kaysen Wallace finished 3 for 30 from the field. Toppin 1 for 10. Wallace 1 for 13. Cal on the postgame radio show, was listening to him right before we hopped on here, and that's the first thing he brought up is how his 3 stars cannot shoot that poorly.
Yeah, I even thought Toppin started off doing really well on Brandon Miller. I initially thought this game was going to come down to which one of those two guys just kind of had the better game, and Brandon Miller really didn't play all that well in the first half. I'm not entirely sure what his stats were for the whole game, but Toppin, I thought, did a pretty decent job on him on defense, but unfortunately on offense, it was more of the same that we've seen pretty much all year, aside from the last 2 games where he was taking his pull-up, fadeaway, 16-footers. He had an air ball hook shot in the paint. Like, these were the exact same shots that he was hitting the last 2 games. He just wasn't tonight. or this afternoon, I should say. And then I believe he got injured in the second half. Something, I'm not sure what it was, maybe with his shoulder. That was coincidentally the 2 minutes of game time I went to go get some chicken tenders was when Jacob Toppin got hurt. So I'm not sure exactly what happened to him there, but obviously the game was over at that point. And then, yeah, when you get no production from Case and Oscar as well, like Jack was saying, Oscar essentially just got played off the floor by Bediako, who looks a lot better than he did last year, but that still is not something that should be happening. Case and Wallace picked up those 2 quick fouls, and Cal just, shoved him on the bench, and he never had a chance to get in a groove from there. But just, even when he wasn't, he really wasn't great as well. So it was just the poor energy levels. Everything was just down from the start, and it led to what we saw. So,
well, how were the chicken tenders? At least were they pretty good?
They were actually pretty good. The ranch was definitely mediocre. Probably Kroger store bought, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the chicken tenders are solid for $15. But that media voucher helped me out. But $15 for chicken tenders. They serve beer here too.
Wow.
That's it. That's the reason. That makes
sense.
That's why.
Another question from the scene. All of us at home couldn't help but hear the NIT chants. And then I guess I've seen on Twitter, I didn't catch this watching it, but there were some Cal to Texas chants.
Twice.
So it sounds like the home team crowd was giving it to
the Blue got in. The Blue got in then?
No. You'll just wait till the next game at Rupp, and you might hear the same chants. But yeah, there was honestly not that many Kentucky fans at all. I was a little bit surprised. It was definitely red all around. But yeah, there was multiple NIT chants. The Cal to Texas chants, I think the first one maybe was in the first half, and we heard it again in the second half as well. Those started all from the student section. And then Nate Oates was asked in the press conference, about the NIT chants, and he kind of played it off like, well, of course Kentucky's going to make the tournament. They're not going to the NIT. I'm not sure if that's currently the case if the season were to end today, but shout out to Nate Oates for, pumping up Kentucky. I want to make a point in general about the players in Cal. They really are harping on this. Well, we beat Kansas by 30 on the road last year and they won the national title. I'm not entirely sure that comparison should be made anymore because that Kansas team was still good and had good players and like multiple players that, winded up going to the league, like Abaji and guys like that. So I'm not sure we can continue to make that comparison anymore because Kansas ultimately started winning games, and it doesn't really look like that's going to start happening for Kentucky anytime soon.
Here's my issue with that. Cal brought that up again. He was like, look, we beat Kansas last year by yada yada. When we keep looking back on that regular season win, we're Indiana. That's what Indiana did. Indiana celebrates that 2012 win against Kentucky in the regular season like it's the best thing to ever happen, and that's our joke. But the farther and farther we get away from that Kansas game, and we keep bringing it up, that is very Hoosier-like of us, and I don't like how he keeps doing that. Jack, you mentioned how Blue didn't really get in there today. I'm worried about the status of Big Blue right now. I'm not sure I've seen it this low, at least on the internet. Part of that is losing by 26 and not really being in the fight at all. I mean, where do they even go from here? Is this team – they were talking about how they just found their confidence beating Louisville and then LSU, but then you go and just lay a clunker like this where your star players gave you nothing. And Cal, after the game, talked about how their mentality just has to get better on the road. At what point is this team – I mean, can they still figure it out? I know it's January 7th, but this was a pretty heart-crushing loss to everyone.
Yeah, this was worst-case scenario for Kentucky by far. We talked on the pregame show about how this could be a statement opportunity for Kentucky where – we could see, okay, let's knock off the early season rust. Let's just, move on past the ugliness that we saw out of them to start the year and really make a statement in Tuscaloosa. They did, unfortunately, but except the statement was that this was not an NCAA tournament team. This team, unfortunately, in my opinion, has the pieces. They could lose every game the rest of the year and go to the CBI or whatever the hell is below that, maybe just not even accept a bid at all. And I'd still say that this team should have had the pieces put in place to at least maybe not be a title contender, but at least make some semblance of a run, Sweet 16, something. I'm just starting to be concerned that this is just not a cohesive group, that this isn't, sometimes teams don't mesh. Like sometimes just pieces, you can't put a square peg in a round hole. I think that's just kind of the sense I'm getting. I think there's a lot of talent on this team. I do think individually there's a lot to like about it, but I just hate the way they work together. It's not even that the offense was that terrible. I mean, it was kind of like the last 5-10 minutes that we saw against LSU, but put in 40-minute form. But it's just, I just don't think they work well together. They're not a great passing team. It doesn't feel like they have a lot love for each other. There was the lob to Damian Collins there at the rim, and I was kind of like waiting, like, okay, maybe that's like the punch that they needed for the bench to start going crazy or something. And they panned right to the bench, and they were just like, golf clap. I'm like, all right, well, they're screwed. This team has no chance. So, yeah, I'm kind of even past the point of making excuses or what could be thinking down the road. I'm firmly wait and see, guy have to see it to believe it mode at this point.
Yeah, most of my complaints are still directed at coaching because I just cannot believe it is now 3 games into SEC play. We're in January, and he's still asking for patience and saying this is a new team. I mean, in this transfer portal world, everyone has a new team, and Kansas is and all the other teams at the top to me doing fine rebuilding. But he has called out the players a lot. In fact, some people would say they want more accountability out of Cal, but there is something to him saying these guys aren't shooting well. When they go 5 of 20 from 3, it's 25%, and 21 of 73 from the field, and a lot of those were good looks. I think sometimes we are putting a little too much on Cal with that offense because they had some open looks today, and they just weren't going in. Oscar missing bunnies. What was free throws? Did they even shoot free throws today? Got
5 for 8.
5 of 8. My goodness. So, I mean, it's even if they were flowing right, it's just not going in. It seems like an all systems failure heading into next week, and it sounds like Cal's going to push them in practice tomorrow. He mentioned when they get back, right back to work, you worry with whatever's going on in their headspace and, just their attitudes coming off this loss, how that will work and their lack of energy to this. Hope it doesn't break them. But, Zach, what do you see next from this? Are we just going to rely on Xavier Wheeler being the leading scorer and the go-to option the rest of the way? Because I hope not.
I hope not, too. I'm not really sure, honestly, where they go from here. Oscar got played off the floor. Kaysen had foul trouble, so you can kind of chalk things up to there. But, Cal, he's been on very – I'm trying to think of the word, but he's been very adamant about shortening the rotation. And we saw 9 guys in maybe the first 10 minutes. And, I just don't – he put in a Duthier who, to his credit, made some nice little plays and things when he was in. But it just felt like he was scrambling the moment they got down by 8 or 9 points. And then from there it was over. So I don't really know what the next step is for this team. If it's more scrimmaging, sure. I guess, obviously, if they scrimmaged yesterday morning or whenever that was, that clearly didn't help. So I think if you're going to have a change, it has to be an overall change. It has to be a massive – this is no tweak time. They have to make wholesale changes or, completely change how they do the offense in general. So I don't know what the next step is.
Well, they missed a big opportunity today. Still no quad wins on the schedule. They get home Tuesday for what will probably be a meaningless game, helping them out in the tournament. Then it's to Tennessee next Saturday. I will be attending that one. It seems the Big Blue Nation is down big. I'm reading some live comments over here. It is not pretty for our boy John Calipari in this comment section. I won't share them all, but I think that's just how the fan base feels. So, Zach, we'll let you get on the road from Bama. Jack, do you have any positivity to add before we move on and put this behind us, and then we all go tighten up tonight versus the Jaguars?
I wish I did. I wish I did have some positivity, but I don't. But I'll end it with another really crappy note. It's just I don't know how the players can look at this and have the kind of slow build momentum that they had the last 2 games and not have an excuse for why they hit rock bottom today. Like last year, you had the injuries with Ty or the rolled ankles here or Xavier getting hurt or what. Like you had excuses as to why things crumbled the way they did, and you're like, okay, well. Throw that aside, throw the injuries aside. Now we can focus on, getting healthy and then get back to where we were before. You were building momentum and things were getting better. And then the rug got pulled out from underneath them yet again. And with no real excuse for it. There's no reason that Oscar Tshiebwe played as bad as he did, or those 3 did combine for 3 of 30 shooting. There's nothing like tangible to hold on to. It wasn't Brandon Miller going off for 85 points. Like this was just an absolute dog walking from start to finish. It just made no sense. So I don't even know how the players can get up for this. I don't even know how they have the confidence to go, okay, well, let's just, throw that aside and focus on the future, because I don't know. It's just, I am very, very concerned moving forward after seeing this absolute embarrassment in Tuscaloosa.
Well, now we're at the point we just got to beat a 7-7 South Carolina team to feel good again. I don't think we can count any wins as a lock this year, even the ones at home against the Gamecocks. But that's next on Tuesday. For now, we'll let Zach get on the road. Me and Jack have got to get back to our writing, and this was another sad KSR Rapid Reaction sponsored by Justice Dental. Go Cats and tighten up.